Hi, it's Lily. Today I'm going to be playing Escape Among Us and I'm going to be putting on story times in the background. So make sure you like, subscribe, and I'll see you all in the video.
Story time of how I burned down my entire house when I was 8 years old. So basically, we had so many candles in the house, I guess just because my mom was obsessed with candles. I was also obsessed with fire. So every time I seen the candle, I would put my finger in the fire. And no, it didn't hurt me whatsoever. I guess it was just amusing to me. And everybody called me a pyro. So one day I was scrolling on Musical.ly, and on the Feature Me page, I saw something with a candle. And it was how to make your own candle or something like that. But you had to make your own candle out of a candle. So I went into my room and I closed my door. And the first step was melting the candle all the way. So I lit the candle and then I put a piece of paper in there. I don't know why I did, but I did. And the fire started getting so big, so I lifted the piece of paper and I threw it on my rug. And I didn't want to get in trouble for fire on the floor, so I just left my room and left it alone. And I kid you not, just a couple minutes later, I hear the smoke detector going off. And my older brother screaming. I'm running out of time for part 2. Part 2 of how I burned down my entire house at just 8 years old. So continuing on with the story, after I hear the smoke alarms going off and my brother screaming, I knew exactly what I did. And I blamed it all on my brother. And to this day, they still think it's my brother. Even though it was in my room, but my family believed whatever I said. Anyways, the whole backside of the house was on fire, and we all rush out of the house. And of course, my mom takes care of it. I'm pretty sure she called 911. Well, duh. Sadly, our 2 cats, 2 bunnies, and 4 hamsters were in the house. And our bird, but our bird was getting ready to pass anyways. I'm not sure how, but the house caught on fire so quickly, and the entire thing just blew up into flames. There might have been something else that the fire triggered to make it more big, I guess. I don't really know how to word that. But we ended up raising enough money to move to a different house because we lost every single one of our belongings. When the house burned down, there was only one wall standing, and it was the wall of pictures of my grandma who passed 10 years ago.
Time! So yesterday my friends and I all went to the fair and there were 6 of us in total. And none of us wanted to have to worry about driving there and parking, so we just Ubered instead. So we left the fair around 11:15 and we walked to a nearby shopping center where the Uber picked us up about 10 minutes late. We ended up leaving at 11:30. We get in the Uber, the man says hello, and we head home the normal way. Everything's fine. And my parents don't like when I Uber, so they were tracking me on Life 360 from the moment I got in the car. After about 10 minutes in, I get a text from my mom, and it said, "Where are you?" I look up from my phone and I realize I have no idea where we are, and Ubers know their directions, they know how to take you home. We were 20 minutes out of the way. So I'm terrified. My mom's texting me nonstop, literally about to call the police. I'm gonna run out of time, but posting part 2 today. Okay, back to the Uber story. Our parents are freaking out, we're texting each other in our group chat so he doesn't hear us. Also, while this was all happening, he wasn't talking to us, but he had an earbud in, and he was talking to someone on the phone really quietly. It was super creepy. My mom starts calling me again, and he hears the ring. And one of my friends pulled up on her phone the directions to get home, which he also heard, so he knew that we thought something was off. After a little while longer, we finally know where we are, so we feel a little bit better. We were getting really close to the turn that goes into my friend's neighborhood, and we were thinking, if he doesn't make this turn, we're screwed. Thank goodness he makes a turn and we're back at my friend's house. But the scary thing is what if he was planning something, but since our phones were ringing and we had the GPS up, that he changed his mind. Because we were not going home. I still can't stop thinking about it. This is the one time Life 360 has come in handy. We're all safe now.
I never wore big dresses to school. Let me set the scene for you. 4th grade Joe, 9 years old, super perky and happy to be wearing a giant dress to school. You know, I don't know why I was. Maybe we had just gotten it. I was super excited about it. It was like a Wednesday. I was probably like, "Mom, I want to wear this dress." And since I was mainly tomboyish my entire life, she was probably like, "Yes, wear it." So I took it to school. So I took it to school. It made playtime a little complicated, but that's fine. Recess was fine. I was one of those kids who liked to roll around in the dirt, climb trees, all that jazz. And I'm like, it's just a dress. It'll be fine. So it's time for nutrition class. I don't know. They're trying to teach us about pyramids and food groups. My teacher starts looking at me funny. And then she kind of just says to the entire class, "Josadak?" And I'm like, "Is it Josadak? Can you come with me outside for a second?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." 4th grade me just comes with her outside. And when we're outside, she closes the door. And I'm like, huh. She slowly takes off her shoe. I was like, oh. Look for part 2. Okay, part 2. I honestly didn't expect to make 2 parts out of this. So my teacher was looking at me like so intensely while she was taking off her shoe. And I was so confused. Miss whatever your name is, because I don't remember. What are you doing? And she goes, don't move. And I start panicking. But I do what she says. Like, she gets her shoe, she holds it up to here. And then she throws it at me. And I literally jumped. She hit me in the bottom half of my dress. The shoe went flying. You know what else went flying? Right next to her shoe was the giantest spider I have ever seen in my life. I think it was a tarantula, which would have been fine because tarantulas are pretty much harmless. But at the time, both her and I were freaking out. She literally knocked the spider out. Her aim was so good. I'm actually amazed right now. She's like, oh my God, I saw that on your dress when you came in and I had to get it off. I was like, thank you. Yeah, I had no idea that was on there.
I got hit by a car at work. Story time. So 2 weeks ago, I was at work, obviously, and I was getting trained. But they were training me in a different building. This building just so happened to be behind a grocery store. And during my lunch, I walked over to the grocery store to get a fork. To get to the store, I had to walk through the parking lot, just like you do for any store. As I was walking through the parking lot, I walked behind this parked car. I didn't realize that they were trying to back up, but they were. And then they backed up into me. It was honestly just a little tap, but it still hurted. So it was a young girl, and after she slightly taps me, she comes out of her car, hysterical, freaking out like, oh my God, are you okay? Like, do you have to go to the hospital? I'm so sorry. She was freaking out more than I was. To make her feel a little bit better, I was trying to joke around with her, and I was like, girl, I'm okay, I'm alive, you didn't finish the job. After I said that, it just made the situation worse. She just stared at me like I was crazy and said, you need help. And I was like, girl, I'm trying to make you feel better for hitting me. Like, actually, you know what? My neck actually hurts. I might just sue. Make her pockets hurt.
One time I was behind the register at Victoria's Secret. This customer walks in and immediately everybody spots her as a red flag. She's just picking up items, throwing them in her bag, not looking at sizes, not looking at colors. So everybody's like, Everyone's on their walkie like, watch this customer. She's coming to the fitting room. She's headed to the cash wrap. Somebody get her. Check her ID. Get her. Get her. She has a bag full of stuff. And guess who gets her at the register? Me. So she comes to my register and she dumps out her stuff. And we're having a regular conversation. Hi, how are you? Yada, yada, yada. Her total comes up to probably between $700 to $900. It was expensive. My manager is at the register next to me, talking to me on the walkie. Ashley, make sure you get that ID. Don't matter what she's using, make sure you get that ID. So I ask her for the ID because she's paying credit. Why do you need to ask for my ID? Just take it, run it. I'm like, no ma'am, I'm sorry, I need your ID for the purchase. She starts to raise her voice at me. So she's raising her voice at me and I'm like, but I just couldn't, y'all. So I was like, I can raise my voice too. Do you want to play this game? Because I'll win, promise. And she's like, oh, well, what time do you get off work? And I'm like, I'm closing. I'm actually getting off at 11. Would you like to pick me up? And then she calls me stupid. She's like, whew. So I took a deep breath. And I to the back. I'm still cursing her out as I'm walking to the back of the store. I really thought I would get fired, but I actually didn't.
There's a story time that happened in 2nd grade. So my teacher never allowed fidget spinners, and my friend always brought one to school because that was the only thing that helped us focus. But every time she saw it, she would take it, and she would never return it even though she said she was. So me and my friend, I'm gonna call her Jalen, and my other friend, I'm gonna name her Caitlin. So me, Jalen, and Caitlin all had this plan to sneak into school and take our fidget spinners. So at recess, we had this plan spot behind the tree, and we would all talk about it. This girl even didn't eat her lunch because her teacher took away her fidget spinner. Anyway, we all had this plan to sneak in school and break the windows, go in class and steal all our fidget spinners and give them back to the owners. But every time we talk about it, we'd get caught by this one kid named Nathan, and he would all go tell the teacher. But the teacher didn't care, obviously, because she knew we weren't going to do it. Like for part 2. Okay, part 2 of the fidget spinners. Okay, so as you know, Nathan was going to tell on us, and the teacher obviously didn't believe us because we were little kids and he knew we wouldn't do that. So we all had a plan that the next day we would all meet up at the playground in the school at 6 p.m. So That day, no one showed up. I didn't even show up. And the next day at school, we all got mad at each other for not showing up. And we all said we showed up, but you guys didn't. And I didn't show up. My friend didn't show up. None of us showed up. But we just lied about showing up. So we just gave up and we just never did it again. Because we knew we would never get our fidget spinners. Tell me if you want more.
This is why waking up late might just save your life. One day when I was in elementary school, my mom and I both overslept, which meant I wouldn't be ready in time to get on the bus. School started at 8, my bus pickup time was at 7, and it was already 6:40 or something. I was still in my PJs and hadn't even had breakfast yet. My mom decided that today we would just tell the bus driver to go on ahead and she would take me to school, which would give me plenty of time to get ready. It's 6:50, I'm in my PJs eating breakfast, and that's when we hear the bus pull up 10 minutes earlier than scheduled. My mom peeks her head out of the door into the foggy morning and waves the bus on. She closed the door and came back inside, but the bus didn't pull away. There's a knock at the door and my mom opens it to find a man in a bus driver uniform. He explains he's a substitute bus driver because the regular driver called in sick and that he's early because he wanted to get an early start on the route. My mom says she's taking me to school because we woke up late. He gets visibly upset and says he can wait a few minutes since he's already ahead of schedule. My mom says that we won't be ready in a few minutes and tells him to go on ahead. He seemed really angry about this, but turned around, got back on the bus and left. But at 7 a.m., another bus pulls up to my house. My mom went out to talk to them and came back looking terrified. Part 2 of why sleeping in might just save your life. After talking to the bus driver, my mom came back looking terrified, but she didn't say anything about it and told me to finish getting ready for school. At the time, I didn't know what happened, but my mom would end up telling me a few years later. When she went to the second bus, she found out it was being driven by my regular driver and it was full of other kids that are usually on my route. By the way, the other bus was empty. My mom asked the driver about the substitute driver and about him calling in sick. He tells her that he never called in sick and there is no substitute driver on his route. The driver immediately called dispatch in a panic and told my mom to go inside and call the police and report this incident, which she did without me knowing at the time. There was absolutely no one doing my driver's route that day. Whoever this was most likely a kidnapper who had targeted me. I never heard anything about it again, not even if someone else had ended up being picked up by this mysterious fake bus driver. But chances are, had I gotten on that bus, I would never have made it to school or back home. And if we hadn't overslept on that specific day, I would have been on that bus.
This is the reason why